Hello and welcome, everybody out there in Union Arena Land. I hope you're all having a fantastic day today. We are joined with Izarzin for another deck tech video. Izarzin, say hi.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Izarzin here from Big Pirates TCG.
Nice. And we're diving into one of the brand new decks from Attack on Titan, the Marleyan Soldiers. This deck brings a really unique style into Union Arena, and we're going to break down all that it has to offer. So let's start with the basics. How would you describe the overall identity of the Marleyan Soldiers? Are they an aggro deck, a defensive deck, or a combo deck, or something else?
I would say that the Marleyan Soldiers deck is defensive in the sense that you want to build a really big wall, just like in the anime. You just want a really big Titan to defend and always be able to block, and then you just swing in for big damage,
Very good. So looking at this, how do we think that this deck is looking in our current meta, as an archetype?
I think personally this archetype does falter towards rush decks, but in reality right now we are kind of in a reactionary meta where we're trying to remove the bodies on board, and then we go in for swings, and we're just trying to outvalue by having more bodies on board overall. So essentially, since this has a lot of protection on its higher end, it's able to defend against that type of reactionary removal.
Wonderful. So in addition to all of that, this deck does have to play a 10 drop character. Can you go over the benefits of playing a deck that has to go all the way up to 10 energy?
Oh yeah, it's a lot of energy. So obviously, like you said, we do have that 10 cost character, which is Bertolt, the Colossal Titan. And there are certain disadvantages, which is, if he's on the front line, the number of cards you can place onto your front line is reduced by 1, so you can only have 3 characters on board. And if you try to play any character, you would have to remove another character, right, on the front line. And then the reason why it's so big, which is 6k, right? So thinking about specials, right? Normal specials usually say 5k or less, So you're able to avoid that type of removal. And on its when played, it does sideline all characters with 0 required energy, which usually it can be those nullify impacts and stuff. And then it gains a protection, which is this character cannot be chosen by your opponent's character or trigger abilities until the end of the turn. So it's very much that special in life is not going to be able to affect it. And since it's 6k, it's not affected by the special in hand, by most specials in hand, obviously. And then something that I forgot to say is it's an impact 1 and a damage 3. So yeah, that's very, very, aggressive.
Damage 3 is a terrifying thing to be on a character. As we've learned from the Saitama Impact 3, it makes a huge difference on a card. So moving along, can we go over the other 2 raid characters inside of this deck and how they work in tandem to be able to supply the deck with what it needs to be able to play Bertolts?
Yeah, from what you're seeing here, we're kind of in a deck that, we have Reiner right here. He's a 7 cost. He's more of like a typical type of big ramp card, kind of like the Mario Leona or like the Kirito from the GGO, where, he's like a 5k with impact 1, and then he has nullify impact as well, which is pretty neat. And then during your opponent's turn, your opponent cannot choose this character with abilities on character or event cards unless they pay 1 AP as an additional cost. So, it kind of has that protection, that ward 1 if you play Magic.
Yeah, very difficult thing to be able to squeeze the AP out of people on that one. But then there's one other of these soldiers.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have here is the 5 cost Annie. So she's the female Titan. She's a 4k. And then if on the front line, when a Marleyan Warrior Affinity card performs raid from your hand, reduce its required energy by 1. So it's making that, 10 energy Berthold into 9, and then making that Reiner into 6. And then when played, play up to 1 green character card with 3 or less required energy and 1 AP cost from your hand, set to resting onto your field. So this is kind of like the typical ramp raid that we see in most green decks, like we're seeing that Gloucester and Lancelot, and then we're seeing, the new Sinon once we get Volume 2 is also kind of doing a similar thing. And also, we're seeing something else which is pretty nice, like kind of similar to the 6-cost Lancelot. When sideline, return up to 1 base card of this rated character to your hand, so maybe one of its raid targets is like a draw, 1 play draw trash one, or maybe it's, one of your 2 energy generators. So it's very good to get those back.
Okay, so this definitely seems like it has a lot of strong support, a lot of tough, resilient characters to be able to have to fight through before having the magnificent payoff. Can we look at the curve of the deck? Because it does look fairly straightforward and simple, but there are quite a few unique cards in here outside of the Raiders.
Yeah, absolutely. We have pretty standard cards kind of at the bottom end. So obviously we have the Reiner right there, 0 cost, get trigger 1500. We have the standard Annie, which actually it's pretty nice that she's the filter card, right? Like as we said before, when the raid gets sidelined, you get it back to your hand, so you're able to filter out with the when played, and it has that draw trigger. Then we do have the Bertolt, which is that typical when you rest it gains 2 energy, and then at the end of your main phase it gets sidelined. So you're able to ramp up, and like specifically, like in Gawain, the fact that the C2 is able to be rated means that you're not losing too much value from it being sidelined, right? So since this is the Bertolt, you're able to raid over it. And moving on to the 1 cost, we have a pretty unique 1 cost, I would say. It's very much like the 1 cost in Kurapika, but it's the color trigger, and it's a 1 cost 1500 Bertolt with this character generates energy even if it's on the front line. So you're able to maybe stifle like that early aggression. Maybe they have like a 1k or something, pushing up, and it's that 1500, and you're still able to push up, be aggressive, get that chip damage out, and then when you finally get into your big guy, they're having to block everything, or else they're taking damage 3. Then moving on, we have like another staple in decks, which is the 2 cost in Annie as well. So I don't know if you've noticed, but like even if it's kind of like a normal card in every deck, they still have the names of the raid targets. So it's very easy to get this nice curve. And whenever it becomes active, it generates 2 energy. That typical active 2 energy 2500.
Every deck in the history of UA has this card.
Yeah, it's a great card, honestly.
I like them.
Then moving on, we have our 3 energy. So obviously this will be at the max that our Annie will be able to play, right? So we have a Bertolt. So when played, if you have 6 or more energy generation, draw a card. We love drawing cards. We love getting that 1-for-1. So you're able to keep going with your turn, maybe getting that final so that you can combo out.
Now, I do want to talk about the one cool feature on this card, because I kind of forgot to mention it before we did all of this. This card, if it is your 6th energy, how does it work with the when played?
Oh yeah, it sees its own energy, and you're able to get that draw. It's amazing.
Just wanted to make sure that was clear to everybody before people start yelling for a judge.
No, yeah, absolutely. And it's really nice that it has that active trigger. We love active triggers, especially since we're getting that reduction of the front line to only 3. Active triggers become very important.
Yeah, very, very.
Yeah, and then moving on, we have the Reiner side. As you see, they're kind of a duo, and then Annie's kind of the support. So the Reiner is 3 costs, 3k, and then if you have 6 or more energy generation, this character gains 1k BP, so it becomes a 4k. So, another effective attacker. Yeah, it's a very, very good.
That's not during your turn. It's period.
Yeah, it's period. It's kind of like that Asta that we're about to get from the 1st anniversary. Moving on, we have the 3 cost Aaron kind of has a similar thing where, if it's at 3 or less life, it just becomes a 4k. Those kinds of cards are, a lot of value because you love that 4k breakpoint.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Then moving on, we do have our Reiner right here, which is a 5 cost 2 AP, and it's just 4k. And I don't know if you noticed, but it is 3 energy generation, so you're getting above rate essentially, and it has a when played you draw 2 cards, then place 1 card from your hand into your sideline, which is, it's really, really good because you're not really seeing a lot of search here, so you're just trying to go into just straight up trying to get cards for one basically, and you're trying to, find that, all the pieces you need to get into your combo. And interestingly, it is a get trigger as well, so you are able to get it from your live.
Very cool. Now, we have a, let's call it a menagerie of events over here. One of which is normal and standard, and 2 of which are completely unique to this style of play.
Yeah.
Can we go over them, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have this, I'll start with the 3-cost one. Are we doing it now, here? And then you can only use 1 of these cards per turn. So choose 1 card on your field. This card gains +2 energy generation until the end of turn. If there's a character with Bertolt in its name on your field, choose up to 1 of your AP cards and switch it to act. So basically it's a free card if there's a Bertolt, which, as you can see, we have a lot of those.
Yes, yeah, we do.
And it's kind of reaching that break point. It reminds me of the King engine, obviously, from the green Saitama. You're trying to generate a lot of energy, but obviously it's not the special. But the special for this deck, it's way more unique than the Saitama one. Like, a lot of these specials in Attack on Titan have like very unique concepts. So we have a 9-cost, 2 AP. We fight now, we decide this right here. So this card says, choose 1 of the abilities listed below. If there's a character with Reiner Braun and its card name on your field, choose all instead. So first off, you look at the top 7 cards of your deck. You reveal up to 2 green character cards and add them to your hand. So basically any green character card, you can grab 2 of them. And then you place the remaining on the...
Oof.
Yeah, top 7. It's insane. Like, you're not going to miss, right? It's like impossible to miss.
Yeah.
So that's the first part. And then the second part is you can play up to 2 green character cards with 4 more required energy and 1 AP cost from your hand set to active onto your front line, or perform raid with them on characters on your field. Wow. That is just an amazing card, and it just an amazing setup for your combo,
It's 4 or more required energy. Oh.
Yes. Yeah. So it has to be basically the raids, right? Like, from what we're seeing in deck, it's all the raids that are going to be able to be used for that.
I was playing this completely wrong. I was doing 4 or less. Oh, that's so good. Yeah,
it's really, really good because you're basically putting yourself in a situation where you can potentially get 2 Bertholts out in one turn. It comes to that situation.
Oh, that is such a unique card. So interesting too. It doesn't even require the fulfilled required energy to be able to use. So, that is awesome. So, one thing I want to know is, what does your ideal early game look like? Because obviously you're only running 2 Bertolts, so you can't reliably say, I'm going to be playing Bertolts turn 3 raid. What is your ideal, normal curve look like to be able to be setting yourself up to be able to win against all the decks that we have in our current format?
Yeah, specifically for this deck, like I said, even though it is a ramp deck, there are cards that allow it to be, slightly aggressive and to still be able to generate you energy. So specifically, we do want to see our raid targets, correct? But we want to see that 1-cost Berthold early on so that we're able to, immediately push up and maybe get that chip damage in while you're trying to set up. If you're going first, like the staple, the 2-cost Annie, you want to see that first because you want to set it up for on your second turn immediately, and that's 2 energy being generated. And then specifically, we do want to see the Annie raid because the Annie raid is just pure ramp, and it also it plays a card and it also reduces the cost of all of your Marleyan soldiers. So you can essentially play another Annie, and once you have 2 Annies up there, then this Berthold goes down to an 8. It's kind of like a 8 cost point. Like, you don't necessarily need like this Reiner Braun as much, right?
8's reasonable. So
yeah, it's way more reasonable for sure. And then in this situation, honestly, if we're trying to become a strong and fast deck, we do want to leverage our unique cards. So specifically the special, we do want to get into the special because it's able to make you combo out, and then once you give that provided pressure, your opponent is forced to block, right? Like they have to block this Barrett hold, or else damage 3 is coming through. And even then, once your combo has been played out, you're still in a safe position because your Reiner, it has protection. They have to pay that extra AP. They have to use a lot of resources to be able to out your board.
And it's a 5K.
Yeah, it's a 5K. It's insane.
5Ks are broken.
Yeah, 5Ks are amazing.
So looking at this, it seems like there's a lot of in-depth practices to this deck that like someone who plays it a lot might be able to take advantage of over somebody who just picks it up and goes, okay, this is another big green deck like Lancelot. Let's see what happens. Do you think this deck is more welcoming to newer players or to experienced players, or could both genres of players get something great out of this?
I believe that it is leaning more towards the experienced players. Like I said, there's not the straightforward cards, like your special isn't just going to remove something, and you're getting into situations where you have to get to a very high amount and you're trying to get to as fast as possible. But I will say being able to play this deck will make literally every other green deck feel like easy. Like maybe other than Green Saitama, right? That's its own rigmarole. But in reality, this deck is going to show you what a real, green deck is supposed to look like. And then, you can play literally any other and, you'll pick it up way easier.
Yeah. So you would say that this deck has a very high skill ceiling?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it has a very high skill ceiling.
Awesome. So we already heard you kind of touch on what the bane to this deck is, Rush. What is the dream matchup for a deck that gets to run a 6K and a don't touch me unless you pay an extra AP card?
I believe it's the type of decks that you're seeing right now that are, their raid pops a 4K or something, or maybe it bounces a 4K, for example, if you're running straight Sukuna, even if you're trying to arrest them with a 5 cost, like the Reiner, you have to pay an extra AP to arrest. Like, isn't that insane? Like a card that you think is super strong, now it's basically a 2 AP card. So you're very much trying to play against decks that usually try and beat down against other 4K decks. So like I said, you got the blue Sukuna, you've got the red black Clover. And you've got a few others, that are have that 4K, like maybe the Integrity Knights, right? Like the Alice deck.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say those are the types of decks that it has very good matchups against.
Awesome. So last thing I want to know is, do you think that this deck is going to be a meta contender or a gatekeep style deck in our format?
I believe that Marleyan Soldiers is going to be a gatekeeping deck. It's going to be very much like a knowledge check and understanding that, you're not trying to react to this deck. You're trying to, have your energy curve going, but, try and push up as many bodies as you can and the energy line up to the front line so that you're able to get in that early damage. So yeah, I would say it's a gatekeeping deck.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that about wraps up everything I wanted to go over. Huge thanks again, Izarzin, for walking us through the Marleyan Warrior deck, apparently is what it's called. Izarzin, Go ahead and let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, the base of all my content is from Big Pirates TCG. We are doing a lot of Bandai games, but, we're still doing those Union Arena games. We might do like a deck tech as well, because the flexibility of these AOT decks are surprisingly good. You don't necessarily have to go into this bear hole. You can slot in maybe a Rod Rice in there. You can do a lot of things with these decks. So yeah, so just make sure you look out for any deck techs from Big Pirates TCG.
Awesome. And of course, I'm ProDMJoey. You can find me and both of us down in the description below, and look out for more UA content in the future. Thank you all very much. Have a great time. Bye.